The fog sat low over the French hedgerows, a heavy, muffled blanket that swallowed every sound except the creak of metal breathing in the cold dawn. Inside the Sherman Hawthorne, Gunner Jack Rourke wiped his palms against his trousers for the 5th time, pretending it helped. The tank smelled like oil, cordite, and the sour breath of men who hadn't slept a full night in weeks. "Visibility's crap," muttered Davis, the driver. "That's good," Jack said, though his voice betrayed him. "Means they can't see us either." Lieutenant Harper, perched in the commander's cupola, lifted his binoculars but saw little more than shifting gray. Yet something was wrong. The birds, usually chirping even in the worst weather, were quiet. Too quiet. Then it came, a rumble so deep it shook the Sherman's tracks. Not thunder. Not artillery. Something heavier. Something alive with steel. "Tanks," Harper whispered. "Big ones?" Jack's heart tightened. "Panthers." It could only be Panthers. The fog thinned just enough to show their silhouettes, 5 of them emerging in a line, like predators materializing from another world. Taller, stronger, and deadlier than the Sherman. 1 Panther was a problem, 5 were suicide. Harper dropped into the tank. "Gunner, be ready." "Loader AP, now!" "AP up!" yelled Cooper, ramming the shell home. Jack's hands hovered over the elevation wheel. 5 Panthers. At this range, the Sherman's gun might as well be a slingshot. "Hold," Harper said. The Panthers halted, scanning the hedgerows with deliberate menace. 1 turret swung toward them. Jack's breath froze. "Take the shot!" Harper barked. Jack squeezed the trigger. The tank erupted with a blast that kicked the turret ring. The shell screamed into the fog, finding the weak spot on the nearest Panther's lower glacis. A fireball punched upward. "1 hit," Cooper gasped. "Holy hell!" Jack didn't celebrate. The remaining 4 Panthers were turning toward them like wolves fixing on the kill. And the fog, once their shield, now trapped them. The explosion of the first Panther lit the fog from within, an orange pulse that revealed the monstrous silhouettes of the other 4. Their engines growled, rising in pitch as they spread out like practiced hunters. Jack could feel the Sherman's thin armor closing in around him, turning the inside of the turret into a metal coffin. "They're flanking," Harper snapped. "Driver, reverse, slow. Gunner, traverse right." The turret groaned as Jack swung it, the fog smearing everything into uncertain shapes. His heartbeat seemed louder than the engine, louder than the commands, a primitive drum warning him he had no business being alive inside a Sherman with Panthers on the field. A flash, muzzle flare, right side. "Down!" Harper shouted. The Panther's 75mm round slammed into the hedgerow a meter above the Sherman. Dirt and shattered branches rained down in a choking cloud. The concussion rattled Jack's teeth and made the turret ring squeal. "Loader, AP! AP loaded!" Jack forced himself to breathe as another silhouette grew sharper through the mist. The Panther was angling its front plate toward them, daring them to shoot. At this distance, the shell would bounce like a pebble off a wall. "Harper," Jack said carefully, "we need a side shot or this is pointless." "I know," the lieutenant answered, voice tightening. "Driver, cut left between those hedges. We're not winning this head on." The Sherman lurched as Davis threw the tank forward, cutting through wet earth. Branches scraped along the hull like nails. The sound made Jack's nerves twitch. The fog shifted, opening briefly like a curtain, and a Panther burst through it, no more than 80 meters away. Its turret was still turning. "Now!" Harper yelled. Jack fired. The shell struck the Panther's turret ring with a deafening crack. A shower of sparks erupted, followed by a blast of flame that shot from the commander's hatch. The turret froze in place, jammed, then detonated as ammunition inside cooked off. "2!" Cooper shouted, voice rising with disbelief. But there was no time. A 3rd Panther fired. The round tore through the hedgerow and smashed into the Sherman's left side, not penetrating, but hitting hard enough to knock every man inside sideways. Jack slammed against the gun breech. Stars flashed in his vision. "We can't take another hit like that," Davis coughed. Harper steadied himself, face pale in the dull light. "We're not planning to. Gunner, find the next target." Jack swallowed hard, peered into the fog, and saw movement. But this time it wasn't a tank. It was infantry, German infantry, advancing behind the Panthers. They weren't fighting a duel anymore. They were being hunted. Jack's sight picture dissolved into shifting shapes. Helmets bobbing, rifles glinting, shadows moving low through the hedgerow. The Panthers weren't alone. They had brought a screen of infantry to flush out whatever American tank dared to resist. It meant one thing. This wasn't a patrol. It was an execution. "Infantry right side," Jack warned. Harper reacted instantly. "Cooper, load and be fast about it." He loaded. The fog muffled everything except the pounding of boots. Jack fired. The high-explosive shell burst in a flash that swallowed the nearest cluster of infantry. Screams followed, distorted, swallowed by smoke, but unmistakable. Davis pushed the Sherman backward, trying to keep distance from the advancing line. "We've stirred up a nest of hornets, LT. We're not staying here," Harper replied. "Gunner, switch back to AP. Panthers first." The turret turned left, metal grinding, every sound painfully loud. Jack peered through the gun sight, searching for the telltale horizontal lines of a Panther's hull. A shadow shifted. There. Low, wide, unmistakable. "Panther, 11 o'clock. Range?" Harper asked. Jack sucked air through his teeth. 70 meters, maybe less." "That close?" Cooper muttered. "Man, we're dead." "No," Harper said quietly. "Not if we hit his vision ports." It was insane. But so was staying still. "AP loaded. Fire!" Jack squeezed the trigger. The 75mm shell smashed into the Panther's front superstructure, not the glassy plate, but the narrow slit of the driver's visor. The shot shattered the viewport, and ricocheted inside like a buzzsaw. The tank lurched violently, engine roaring, then rolled sideways into a ditch like a wounded animal. "That's 3!" Harper shouted. "Keep moving!" But the celebration died instantly. A fourth Panther emerged at their 9 o'clock, its gun already pointed directly at them. No fog hid it now. Its outline was terrifyingly sharp, towering above the hedgerow. "Oh hell," Davis whispered. Jack trained the turret, too slow. The Panther had them dead to rights. Harper's knuckles whitened as he grabbed the turret handles like he could move the tank by will alone. The German gun fired. A blinding flash erupted, so bright Jack flinched before he registered the sound. But the Sherman didn't explode. Instead, the round struck a stone wall inches to their left, shattering it in a cloud of rock and dust. A near miss, but close enough to feel the shockwave punch the hull. "They're bracketing us," Harper said. "Next shot will hit. Then we need to shoot first," Jack said. "AP!" Harper barked. Cooper slammed the breech closed. Sweat poured down his face. "Loaded!" Jack swung the turret the last few inches, every second stretching into unbearable silence. The Panther adjusted its aim. "Fire!" The Sherman's gun blasted. The shell struck the German tank's lower hull, right where the armor thinned near the front bogies. Sparks flew. Something ruptured. Flames spit out from the driver's hatch. The Panther halted, smoke billowing from its underside. 4, Jack whispered. Harper didn't smile. He didn't blink. "There's still one more." And as if summoned by those words, the fifth Panther's engine growled somewhere in the fog, circling. Hunting. The fog curled through the orchard like fingers searching for prey, swallowing sound, bending distance, turning shapes monstrous and uncertain. Inside the Sherman, the crew held their breath, listening for the fifth Panther. It was out there, circling them, its engine now just a faint, predatory hum. "Davis," Harper whispered, "keep us moving. Slow. Don't make patterns." "Copy." The Sherman crept forward, treads whispering through wet grass. Every man inside felt the weight of the unseen gun trained somewhere, waiting for the moment they moved into the open. Jack kept his eye glued to the sight, though it showed nothing but shifting gray. "Cooper," Harper said quietly, "how many AP we got?" 5 rounds left. "Plenty," Jack muttered. "If we see him first." "That's the problem, isn't it?" Cooper replied, voice shaking. A distant thud rolled through the fog. Not a gunshot, an engine revving hard. "Left!" Jack snapped. Davis wrenched the controls, just as a dark shape materialized between the trees. The Panther burst through the mist like a ghost gaining flesh, lean, angular, terrifyingly graceful for something so heavy. Its cannon slewed toward them with mechanical precision. 1 second. 2. Jack locked the turret. "Range?" Harper barked. 60 meters. "Shoot!" Cooper slammed the breech shut. Jack fired before he consciously registered that he had done it. The shell smashed into the Panther's manlet. But the German armor at that angle was thick. Too thick. The round bounced off with a shriek of tortured metal. "Ricochet!" Jack cursed. The Panther returned fire instantly. The impact hit the Sherman like a train. A thunderclap of steel on steel. The interior lights flickered. Cooper was thrown back into the ammo rack. A shower of dust and rust flakes fell like sand from a panicked hourglass. "We're hit!" Davis shouted. But the tank was still alive. Harper checked the panels. It struck the turret cheek. "No penetration. Next one will!" Cooper yelled. "Load AP." "Loaded," he said a moment later. The Panther's engine roared. It backed up, shifting position for the killing angle. Jack tracked it through the sight as best he could, its outline blurring, then fading, then reappearing as the fog breathed around them. "He's repositioning," Jack said. "Smart driver. He's no rookie." "No," Harper said quietly. "This one knows what he's doing." For a moment, the battlefield fell silent. No engines, no rifles, only the steady hiss of wind against metal. Then the Panther appeared again, farther right, gun aimed low. "Davis! Back us up behind that embankment," Harper ordered. Davis threw the Sherman into reverse. The Panther fired. The shell tore through the air where the Sherman had been a second earlier and smashed into the embankment instead, sending a wave of dirt cascading over the hull. "Jack," Harper said, voice now steady as stone. "This next one has to count." "It will." "You sure?" Cooper asked. Jack adjusted the elevation wheel with slow, deliberate precision, fingers calm, heart anything but. "I'm sure." Through the fog, he could see the faint glint of the Panther's exposed lower plate. A weakness. A chance. He inhaled. "Target acquired." Harper didn't hesitate. "Fire." Jack squeezed the trigger. The Sherman bucked. The shell streaked across the orchard and buried itself under the Panther's sloped prow, straight into the belly armor beneath the bow machine gun. A muffled explosion rippled inside the German tank. Flames burst out from beneath the front plate. The Panther lurched, stopped, and began to smoke. The last hunter had been gutted. Inside the Sherman, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then Harper whispered, almost reverently, "That's 5. Jack lowered his forehead against the gun sight. The fog drifted over the dying tank like a shroud, and for the first time in minutes, the orchard was silent. The fog thinned as a weak sun finally broke over the tree-line, revealing the orchard in pieces, trees torn apart by shrapnel, earth churned into mud and cratered pits, and 5 Panther tanks smoldering like blackened monuments to a night of terror. The Sherman crew climbed out slowly, as if afraid reality might collapse beneath them. Jack was the last to emerge. His legs trembled the moment his boots hit the ground. Harper scanned the wreckage, lips pressed tight. 5 Panthers, he murmured. "We shouldn't be standing." Cooper let out a shaky laugh. "Tell that to the ordnance boys. They're never gonna believe us." Davis crouched near the Sherman's hull, running his hand across the dent where the panther's shell had struck. "Half an inch different," he said, "and I'd be paced." "Half an inch different," Jack replied quietly, "and we all would be." They fell silent, listening to the soft hiss of burning oil inside the nearest panther. The tank was still popping from internal fires, metal cooling unevenly. The smell of scorched rubber and cooked paint filled the orchard. Harper turned to Jack. "You all right?" Jack nodded, though his hands wouldn't stop twitching. "Just coming down. You saved our hides." Jack didn't respond at first. He was staring at the panther he'd killed last. The one whose weak spot he'd caught through sheer instinct. It was unsettling, knowing how close that fight had truly been. "Harper," he said finally. "That last commander, he knew exactly what he was doing." "I know," Harper replied. "Veteran. Probably fought on the Eastern Front." Jack exhaled. "That explains the patience." Harper nodded. They weren't expecting a single Sherman crew to fight like cornered wolves. A distant artillery rumble rolled across the fields. The front was still shifting, inch by blood-soaked inch. "We should radio battalion," Davis said. "They'll want to know we broke through." "No," Harper said. "First we check the Panthers. For survivors." Cooper looked horrified. "Survivors? After that? Why?" Harper fixed him with a steady gaze. "Because we're soldiers, not butchers." They approached the first panther cautiously. The hatch was half open, smoke curling from inside like breath from a dying beast. Harper climbed up, covering his mouth with a rag. One crewman lay slumped over the breach, still. Another lay curled on the floor, burned, unmoving. "Nothing," Harper said, voice hollow. They checked the second tank. The turret interior was coated in soot, but one gunner had lived long enough to crawl halfway out before collapsing. Harper closed the hatch quietly. The third and fourth Panthers held similar scenes. By the time they reached the fifth, the last one, the one Jack had crippled, Jack felt a knot form in his chest. Harper lifted the hatch. A faint cough answered. A lone young German, barely older than 19, lay against the turret wall. His uniform was soaked in oil and blood. His breathing was ragged. He blinked up at Harper, eyes full of pain and something unexpected, fear mixed with a strange, quiet relief. Harper called down, "Jack! Medic kit, now!" Jack rushed forward, handing it up. As Harper tried to stop the bleeding, the German whispered in broken English, "Good shot." Jack froze. The young man looked at him, not with hatred, but with resignation. "War is finished for me." His breath hitched, then stopped. Harper lowered him gently, wiping soot from the boy's face. No one spoke for a long time. Finally Harper whispered, "Let's move. We need to report in." Jack stared at the fallen tanker, at the orchard full of metal carcasses, and then at the Sherman. Scarred but alive. 5 shots. 5 Panthers. And a cost that wasn't counted on any report. The orchard faded behind them as the Sherman rumbled back toward the company's temporary staging ground. The sun had risen fully now, burning away the fog and revealing a countryside battered by a night of artillery. Trees lay splintered like broken matchsticks. Fences were gone. Fields were mangled. The war had carved its signature into every inch of earth. Inside the tank, no one spoke. Davis drove in silence, his knuckles white on the controls. Cooper sat with his head down, replaying the night again and again. Harper watched the horizon from the commander's hatch, scanning for threats out of habit, though his shoulders sagged with exhaustion. Jack sat with his hands resting on the 75mm breech, feeling the warmth of the steel under his palms. He thought of the German boy, the last Panther's gunner, his quiet words echoing in Jack's mind. Good shot. It wasn't praise. It wasn't bitterness. It was almost a sigh, as if the boy had been grateful the fight was finally over. The war chewed up men on both sides. It didn't care about youth or courage or fear. It simply demanded more. Harper's voice broke the silence. Cooper, try the radio again. Cooper twisted the tuning dials. Static hissed and scratched like a nest of angry insects. Trying, sir. Jack watched the tall hedgerows slide past through the periscope. Birds returned to the branches now that the shelling had stopped, hopping nervously from limb to limb. Finally, Cooper perked up. I've got battalion! Weak signal. Put them through. The radio crackled to life, barely intelligible. Repeat, report status, Panther activity, over. Harper keyed the mic. This is Able 2-1. Engaged 5 Panther tanks northeast of St. Remy. All 5 destroyed. Static. Then. Say again? Did you say 5 Panthers destroyed? Harper sighed. Affirmative. Another long burst of static. Then laughter, disbelieving, incredulous, filtered through. Able 2-1, stop joking. What's your actual report? Harper looked at his crew, jaw tightening. You think I'm joking, battalion? Send a retrieval team. Orchard east of St. Remy. You'll find 5 burnout Panthers and 1 Sherman that's still kicking. A long pause. Then battalion responded, voice suddenly serious. Copy, Able 2-1. Retrieving team en route. Harper set the mic down and closed his eyes. The absurdity wasn't lost on any of them. A lone Sherman should have been running for its life, not counting Panthers like trophies. Cooper smirked. Guess we're legends now. Nobody's a legend, Harper said. We were lucky. Lucky 5 times. Jack murmured. Luck runs out. The words hung heavy in the turret. The Sherman crested a small ridge, and there, at the bottom, the staging ground came into view. Jeeps, half-tracks, another Sherman, engineers repairing a bridge. American soldiers moved about like ants rebuilding after a storm. As Able 2-1 rolled into camp, heads turned. Then jaws dropped. Someone shouted, Holy hell, look at the hits on that thing! Another yelled, They look like they've crawled out of a furnace! Harper climbed out first. Officers hurried over, peppering him with questions. Jack remained inside the turret for a moment longer, letting the noise wash over him. His heartbeat steadied. The shaking in his hands finally died down. But the orchard stayed with him. The fog. The shots. The young German's last breath. He closed his eyes. Then climbed out to face the world and whatever came next. Within an hour, Able 2-1's campsite swarmed with officers, clerks, engineers, and anyone curious enough to hear the miracle repeated firsthand. But the excitement stopped cold when a jeep rolled in, mud flying from its tires. Inside sat Brigadier General Alden Rourke. A man carved from angles and iron, Rourke rarely left headquarters unless something had gone very wrong, or very right. His reputation was simple. He didn't believe anything he didn't see himself. He stepped out of the jeep, boots striking the ground like a judge entering a courtroom. The chatter died instantly. Where, he growled, is the crew claiming they destroyed 5 Panthers in one engagement? Harper stepped forward. Sir? Lieutenant Daniel Harper, commanding Able 2-1. Rourke's eyes raked over the Sherman. Scarred plates. Scorched paint. A gouge where the Panther's shell had struck. He inspected it like a mechanic checking a doubtful engine. This tank, Rourke said, voice neutral, was engaged by Panthers? Yes, sir. And survived because of skill? Some skill, Harper said. Some luck. Rourke's gaze shifted to Jack, who was wiping grease from his hands. You, gunner? Yes, sir. You hit 5 Panthers with 5 rounds? Jack swallowed. 4 rounds, sir. The first Panther took 2. The others, 1 each. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Rourke stared hard, looking for a hint of exaggeration. He found none. Jack's eyes weren't triumphant. They were exhausted. Haunted. Show me, Rourke said abruptly. Sir? Take me to the Panthers. Minutes later, Able 2-1 rolled out again, with Rourke's jeep following close behind. The orchard appeared exactly as they'd left it, quiet, scarred, and full of smoking German steel. Morning light shimmered across the burned hulls, revealing the battle like a gallery of wreckage. Rourke stepped toward the first Panther. He inspected the penetration hole near the lower mantle. Close-range shot, smart angle. He moved to the second Panther. Turret ring. Very precise. Third Panther. Side plate. You caught them turning. Fourth Panther. Commander's cupola blast. Ammunition cooked off. Then he reached the fifth, the one Jack had crippled with a perfect shot to the drive sprocket. Rourke crouched, examining the hit, tracing the edges with gloved fingers. When he stood, he looked at Jack for a long, silent moment. Finally he said, loud enough for all to hear, "Lieutenant Harper, your crew didn't survive by luck." He turned to Jack. "This gunner disproved German armor doctrine by himself." Jack blinked, stunned. "Sir, we were just trying to stay alive." Rourke's face softened, not quite a smile, but something close. "And yet you did more. Far more." He motioned to a stenographer. "Record this engagement exactly as observed. These men will be commended." The soldiers watching erupted in cheers. But Jack didn't cheer. He stared again at the fifth Panther, the one whose gunner had spoken to him before dying. The victory tasted hollow. And Rourke seemed to notice. He lowered his voice. "Gunner, war asks too much of all of us. But today, you saved American lives. Never forget that." Jack nodded, grateful for the words even if he didn't fully believe them. Rourke straightened and barked, "Back to camp! These men need rest." As the Sherman rumbled away, Jack took one last look at the orchard. The fog was gone. But its ghosts remained. Camp grew quiet as dusk settled over the battered French countryside. The distant thunder of artillery had faded into a low, constant grumble, far enough away to feel unreal, close enough to remind everyone that peace was a temporary illusion. Able 2-1 sat parked in a row of Shermans, its hull still warm from the day's run. Mechanics walked around it with clipboards and flashlights, shaking their heads at the damage. "Surprised this thing didn't break in half," one muttered. Inside a canvas tent nearby, the crew sat around a small stove, steam rising from tin cups filled with weak coffee. No one felt like celebrating. Harper rubbed his temples. "We should be dead," he said finally. 5 Panthers and infantry support? That wasn't a fight. That was an execution waiting to happen." Davis tried to grin. "Good thing they were terrible shots." "Don't joke," Cooper whispered. "I keep hearing that first shell when I try to close my eyes." Harper looked at Jack. "You've been quiet." Jack stared into his cup as if the coffee might answer him. "Do you ever think about the ones on the other side?" he asked. Davis frowned. "They were trying to kill us, Jack." "I know," Jack said. "But one of them talked to me. Before he died." Cooper froze. "What did he say?" Jack swallowed. "He said, 'Good shot.' Like he wasn't angry. Like he was relieved." The tent fell silent. Harper leaned back, exhaling slowly. "He was just a kid, wasn't he?" Jack nodded. "Couldn't have been older than 19. Harper poked the stove, pushing a glowing ember back into place. "Listen, it's normal to feel conflicted. This isn't a storybook war. The Germans aren't monsters. They're soldiers. Same as us." Jack shook his head. "I know that. But knowing doesn't make it easier." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the tent walls. Harper continued, voice softer. "Jack, we did what we had to. 5 Panthers would have rolled right into our lines. They'd have killed dozens of our guys. Maybe hundreds. You stopped them." Jack didn't respond. He wasn't looking for justification. He was trying to understand the weight settling on him, a weight he hadn't felt until he looked into the eyes of a dying enemy. Cooper cleared his throat. "We're getting medals for this, you know." Davis nodded. "Probably a citation, maybe even a silver star." Jack flinched. I don't want a medal. Harper sighed. War doesn't ask what we want. A medic entered the tent, holding a clipboard. Lieutenant Harper? Command wants your crew at the briefing tent in an hour. Something about a new assignment. Harper groaned. Can't we get one night of sleep? The medic shrugged. Orders are orders. When he left, the crew exchanged uneasy glances. New assignment, Cooper muttered. That can't be good. Harper stood and stretched. Whatever it is, we deal with it tomorrow. But Jack remained seated, staring at the stove as the flame flickered. He had survived 5 Panthers. He had done the impossible. But the war wasn't finished with him yet. And deep down, he feared the next fight might demand something from him that he couldn't give again. The briefing tent was dimly lit, a single lantern casting long, wavering shadows across a large map table. Officers crowded around it. Tired faces, mud-stained uniforms, the look of men who'd been gambling with fate for too long. When WW2's crew entered, conversations quieted. Not out of reverence, out of curiosity. Everyone had heard the rumor. 1 Sherman, 5 Panthers. General Rourke stood at the far end of the table, arms crossed. He motioned them forward. At ease, he said, though none of them felt it. Harper stepped closer. You requested us, sir? Yes. Rourke tapped a marked point on the map. This is Hill 302. The Germans are massing armor there, likely preparing a counterattack to retake the crossroads we secured this morning. Jack studied the map. Hill 302 was a jagged ridge overlooking a narrow valley. Whoever held it controlled the entire region. Rourke continued. Recon reports at least 2 Panthers, maybe more. Possibly a tiger. The tent seemed to get colder. Davis muttered under his breath. A tiger? Fantastic. Rourke ignored him. We're sending in 2 infantry companies to hold the valley. But they can't survive if enemy armor pushes through. Which is why we need tanks. Harper nodded. We'll assemble with the battalion. No, Rourke said. This is not a battalion push. He looked at Jack, directly, intensely. This is a precision strike. Your crew will lead. The words hit like a hammer. Sir, Harper said carefully, we're down to 4 armor-piercing rounds. And our suspension took a beating. We're not mission ready. Resupply trucks are arriving now. Ammunition, spare parts. Your tank will be patched and rearmed within the hour. Jack's pulse quickened. Sir, with respect, after what happened today. Rourke raised a hand. I know what you did today. I saw it with my own eyes. He walked around the table, stopping right in front of Jack. Gunner, he said quietly, you have an ability most men do not. You see angles before they exist. You calculate distances instinctively. You make impossible shots intuitive. Jack swallowed hard. Rourke continued. Tomorrow morning, those Panthers on Hill 302 will roll. And if they break through, our entire right flank collapses. Thousands of men will die. The tent was silent. I'm not sending you out because I want to, Rourke said. I'm sending you because there is no one else who can do it. Harper exhaled, shoulders tight. Sir, we'll do it. Rourke nodded once sharply. Good. He returned to the map. You move out at dawn. You'll have infantry support, artillery on standby, and 2 Shermans behind you. But make no mistake, WW2 will take the first shot. Jack felt every eye in the tent on him. The war was asking more. Too much, perhaps. But he had no choice. None of them did. Rourke dismissed them. Get some rest. Tomorrow decides the valley. As the crew stepped out into the cold night air, the weight of the assignment settled on their shoulders. Davis kicked a rock. Great. We survived Panthers just to get sent against more Panthers. Cooper sighed. With a tiger for dessert. Harper placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. You okay? Jack didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the dark horizon, the stars faint behind drifting smoke. I don't know if I can do it again. he admitted quietly. Harper nodded. Then let us worry about the tank. You worry about the shot. Jack stared at his hands, the same hands that had pulled the trigger 5 times in the orchard. Tomorrow, they would be asked to do it again. And this time, failure wouldn't just kill them. It would take the entire valley with them. The field fell eerily quiet after the 4th Panther erupted into a blooming tower of smoke. Even the cicadas seemed to hush, as if the entire countryside held its breath for whatever would follow. Inside the Sherman, the air tasted of cordite and sweat, thick, metallic, and strangely sweet. Tom's hands trembled as he rammed the final shell into the breech. It clicked home with a sound that felt too gentle for what it meant. "Last one, Tommy," Sergeant Hale murmured. He wasn't shouting anymore. No one was. The roaring chaos from minutes earlier had drained away, replaced by a grim, icy focus that locked the crew together like bolts in a steel frame. Lieutenant Brody scanned through the periscope, barely breathing. "Panther number 5, turret's moving. It's searching for us." His voice was almost a whisper. Even the Germans, Tom thought, must be scared now. 4 of their kings lay burning in the grass. The Sherman's engine idled with a low, nervous rumble. Somewhere outside, metal pinged as it cooled, tiny echoes tapping like distant raindrops on a roof. The 5th Panther sat hulking behind a row of shattered apple trees, its cannon gliding from side to side like a predator sniffing blood. It only needed one good angle, one moment of luck. Tom pressed his cheek against the sight, adjusting ever so slightly. His heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning nearly everything else. Only the faint rustling of leaves, shredded by machine gun fire, moved through the stillness. "Steady," Hale said. "Take your time." But there wasn't time. The Panther suddenly rotated its turret toward a glint of sunlight reflecting off the Sherman's hull. Tom saw it. Brody saw it. Everyone did. "Fire, Tommy!" He squeezed the trigger. The world lit in a violent flash as the shell leapt from the barrel, the Sherman jolting back with a harsh metallic shudder. The recoil smashed into Tom's shoulder, but he didn't feel pain, only an explosion of adrenaline and a tunnel of burning focus. His shot flew across the orchard, cutting through dust and drifting leaves, and struck the Panther exactly where its armor curved above the driver's plate. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the German tank bucked upward, a geyser of flame bursting from every seam, hatches, vents, the base of the turret, like the machine itself had screamed. Brody let out a shaky laugh. 5 shots, 5 Panthers. Tom slumped back, exhausted but alive. Outside, the orchard burned slowly, glowing against the late afternoon sun like a graveyard of iron beasts. And the battlefield remained silent once more. The sun had dipped low over the French hedgerows, painting the battlefield in molten gold and shadow. Smoke still spiraled from the 5 destroyed Panthers, black towers of steel melting into the mist. The orchard, once alive with movement and fire, now lay eerily still, save for the faint hiss of cooling metal and the distant drip of water from broken branches. WW2 Sherman rolled slowly down the rutted dirt path, tracks crunching over mud and leaves. Inside, the crew barely spoke. Every man was exhausted, muscles trembling, minds replaying the impossible fight. 5 Panthers, 5, and they had survived. Against all odds, they had lived. Harper finally exhaled. "We did it," he said, though it felt hollow. Not triumph, just recognition of the sheer weight of what had happened. "We actually did it." Tom stared out of the viewport, eyes tracing the blackened hulks. He could still hear the echoes of their engines in his head, the scream of metal bending and fire consuming. He thought of the German gunners he had faced, young men like him, forced into impossible roles. One had whispered a word before dying, "Good shot," and it haunted him still. War had made monsters, yes, but also victims. Davis rubbed his temples. "I don't think anyone's gonna believe this." "They'll see the tanks," Harper said, "but they won't see what it cost us, or them." He tapped the Sherman's side, as if acknowledging the vessel that had carried them through hell. "This tank saved our lives today." Cooper leaned back, finally allowing a small, nervous laugh. 5 shots. 5 kills. And we're still standing. That's insane. Tom shook his head. We're alive. That's insane. Not proud. His voice was quiet, but every man in the crew understood. Pride had no place here. Only survival, calculation, and the heavy, unbearable knowledge of what they'd done. As the Sherman crested the final rise before their staging ground, the camp came into view. Officers and soldiers gathered, some already snapping their necks to get a glimpse of the tank and its crew. Murmurs spread like wildfire. 5 Panthers, able to 1, impossible. Harper climbed out first, shielding his eyes from the fading sun. Report in, he barked. The orchard's clear. The crew followed, each step heavier than the last, their boots crunching over leaves and mud. They carried the weight of survival on their shoulders, heavier than any artillery shell ever could. Behind them, the orchard remained silent, a graveyard of steel and fire, a reminder of the storm that had passed, and the storm yet to come. The men knew this was only one battle in a war that would demand more impossible feats, more blood, more luck. But for now, they had lived. Against all odds, they had lived. 5 Panthers. 1 Sherman. 1 crew. And the echo of those 5 shots would haunt the forest forever. The night settled in. Smoke mingled with mist, and the world seemed to pause, just for a moment, to witness what survival looked like.